lawns that are manicured, that are mowed, once a week or every couple of weeks, have very little habitat value. But some very beautiful landscapes can be created if you allow parts of your lawn to develop into other kinds of habitats. For example, wildflower meadows, which you can encourage with plantings, ornamental woodlands, using especially native species, and groves of shrubs that might break up some of your lawn areas would do a lot to encourage native invertebrates, butterflies, moths, insects of all kinds, in fact, and birds. Using native plant species, as Mike was explaining, minimizing the use of pesticides and fertilizers is very important, not only for things using the lawn itself, but for areas outside the lawns. Pesticides have in some cases, harmful effects on invertebrates, which can be very sensitive to certain pesticides. On other plants that are not the target of your pesticide use, and other animals to some extent that are higher up in the food chain. Fertilizers are what are responsible for a lot of the green scum that develops on ponds, ornamental ponds, and other kinds of surface water in the landscape. Fertilizers readily run off the surface in rainwater, and the more that you can minimize applications of fertilizers on your lawn, or apply them at times and in ways that they will be used immediately and by the plants that you're trying to encourage, the better off the landscape will be. And of course, maintain broad connections with other habitat areas, especially for parts of your lawn which you are allowing to develop into habitats that are maybe more useful than a manicured lawn. Ponds are often treated with pesticides to control weeds. Many of those pesticides have been shown to have bad effects on fish populations, on invertebrates that use the ponds, and on streams and the stream aquatic communities that may be draining those ponds. Many of the non-native fish species that are sometimes used or introduced to ponds for ornamental purposes or to control aquatic weeds often escape and can have bad effects on streams and other water bodies that they enter into. Ponds will provide the best kind of wildlife habitat in most cases if you try to maintain or encourage vegetation, emergent vegetation in areas of the pond itself, and shoreline vegetation around the edges that can provide cover for wildlife and also can help to buffer the pond from other kinds of human activity going on around the edges. And just some general backyard conservation recommendations include things like minimizing noise and light pollution from your own activities, discouraging human-sponsored predators, which include, of course, domestic dogs and cats, but also other kinds of predators like raccoons and skunks and possums that might be taking advantage of your compost piles or your gardens, or you're feeding your pets outdoors. It's best to feed your pets indoors and to contain your compost piles so that you are not contributing to expanding populations of those kinds of predators, which can have very serious effects on the native populations of birds and amphibians and reptiles in the surrounding landscape. This is just what we consider 5 basic rules for promoting native biodiversity in the region, minimizing habitat fragmentation, maintaining and restoring links between habitat patches, and this would include patches on your own property and links with patches outside your property boundaries. Maintaining broad buffer zones around sensitive areas, and those would include areas, not just wetlands, but other kinds of sensitive habitats. Maintaining natural disturbance processes, which include things like flooding and seasonal drawdowns of water. And creating no additional runoff from the developed areas of your property. Things like roofs and driveways tend to hasten the runoff of surface water. If there's any way that you can collect runoff from those kinds of impervious surfaces and make sure that they are collected in basins on site, it will help to protect the habitats of streams that the water eventually will be running into. So that's all I'll say, and we'll get on to the next talk.